Rain whispered against the glass walls of Sterling Heights Tower. Midnight. The city below pulsed with blue light and loneliness. Somewhere on the 49th floor, a cleaning cart rolled softly over the marble. Ariana Vale pressed the elevator button with the edge of her palm. Her hand trembled, not from weakness but from exhaustion. The day had been brutal. Another board meeting, another round of polite pity disguised as concern. Cameras still flashed in her mind. Reporters had shouted as she left the press conference. "Ms. Vale, how does it feel to lose power along with your legs?" She had smiled for the cameras, but the words had cut deeper than the accident that put her in the wheelchair 6 months ago. The elevator doors opened. A man stood inside, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a gray maintenance uniform. He held the door for her without a word. Ariana rolled forward, eyes cold. The metallic scent of floor cleaner filled the air. She caught his reflection in the elevator mirror, calm, observant, unreadable. "You people are always standing in the way," she murmured, almost to herself. The man's eyes lifted. There was no anger in them, only quiet recognition. "Yes, ma'am," he said softly. "Some of us stand where we can." The elevator chimed. She looked away, pretending not to hear him. The doors closed, sealing the silence between them. Outside, thunder cracked over Seattle. Inside, Ariana Vale, once called the Steel Queen of Tech, felt her armor creak. When the doors slid open on the 50th floor, the man pushed his cart out and disappeared down the hall. The faint squeak of the wheels echoed like a memory she did not ask for. She wheeled herself toward her office. Every movement was measured, deliberate. Inside, the city stretched before her in silver rain. She stared at it, unblinking. Behind her, the night crew moved quietly through the corridors. Among them, the man from the elevator, Micah Cole, returned to his routine. His hands were steady, his motions precise. The badge on his chest read maintenance, but there was something in his eyes that did not belong to a man defeated by life. He passed her glass office, saw her head bowed over a desk buried in documents, a bottle of pain medication beside her coffee mug. The lights above flickered once, catching the faint tremor in her fingers. Micah paused but said nothing. He pushed the cart on. Ariana exhaled sharply. The room felt too large, too bright, too empty. For the first time in months, she whispered to herself, "They still see me as broken." The sound of the cleaning cart faded into the distance, like a heartbeat leaving her behind. Before we continue, if this story moves you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are listening from. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Now back to Ariana Vale. The night deepened. The rain grew heavier. She sat in silence, staring at the ghost of her own reflection in the glass, strong shoulders, sharp eyes, the body that no longer obeyed her. Below, on the ground floor, Micah Cole wiped down the last corridor. His whistle rose through the empty building, a soft, steady note that somehow reached her window 50 floors above. Ariana closed her eyes. For a moment, she almost envied the man who could still stand. Then she straightened her back, pushed the wheelchair forward, and whispered, "Tomorrow I work harder." She did not yet know that the man she had just dismissed, the one who cleaned her floors, would soon teach her how to walk again. Morning came gray and heavy over Seattle. The glass walls of Vale Dynamics caught the mist like breath against a mirror. Inside, the building woke to its rhythm of polished shoes, elevator chimes, and the quiet buzz of wealth pretending to be purpose. Ariana Vale arrived early. Her driver wheeled her through the lobby before dawn when only the night crew remained. Her posture was straight, chin lifted, every gesture precise, as if control could disguise the pain that never left her spine. She rolled through the silent executive corridor where the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and rain. The marble floor gleamed, still damp from cleaning. Somewhere ahead, a soft whistling echoed, a simple tune, off-key but peaceful. She stopped. The sound came from the far end of the hall. Micah Cole was there, crouched beside a maintenance cart, folding fresh towels. The same man from the elevator, the same quiet steadiness in his shoulders. He noticed her reflection on the glass wall before he heard her voice. "You work nights, do you not?" "Yes, ma'am," he answered without turning. "Most people do not notice." "I notice the floors," she said. "They shine." "They shine because someone keeps showing up when no one is watching." The remark was calm, but it hit her harder than he knew. She adjusted her blazer, searching for the next word. "You have a strange way of answering questions. Maybe you ask the kind that deserve strange answers." For the first time she almost smiled. Then she caught herself. "What is your name again?" "Micah Cole." "All right, Mr. Cole. Finish this floor and move on. The board arrives at 8. "Yes, ma'am." She wheeled away, but something about his composure unsettled her. People usually bent when she spoke. He did not. Hours later, the office was alive with footsteps and tension. Ariana presided over the morning meeting like a general who had forgotten how to sleep. Her assistant, Clara Jin, handed her a stack of reports. The numbers were solid, but her body was failing her discipline. She pressed her palms to the armrest, fighting the dull ache beneath her ribs. When the last executive left, Clara hesitated by the door. "You should rest, Miss Vale. You have been here since 5. "Rest is a luxury I cannot afford." "Then at least take a break. You are trembling." Ariana waved her off, but Clara's eyes lingered on the untouched lunch tray, the pain medication, the faint sweat on her forehead. Then she left quietly. The building emptied again by nightfall. The rain had not stopped. At 11, the soft hum of machinery returned, the night shift reclaiming the tower. Micah's reflection appeared in her office glass like a ghost. He stood in the doorway, hesitant. "Excuse me, Miss Vale. I can come back later." "No, it is fine. I will be here all night anyway." Her voice was softer this time, less guarded. She gestured toward the scattered files. "Quarterly review. The investors expect miracles." Micah nodded slowly. His eyes fell to the small orange bottles on her desk. "You are still taking the medication." "How do you know about that?" "I used to work as a medic before this. I can tell by the side effects, the shaking in your hands, the tension in your neck. Forgive me, I mean no disrespect." She blinked, unsure whether to be offended or impressed. "What did you say you do now?" "I clean floors. But I am also studying physical therapy. 2 semesters left." "Physical therapy," she repeated, almost amused. "And you think you can read a CEO's posture?" "Pain does not care about job titles, ma'am." The words hung in the room like a slow bell. She stared at him, then at her own hands. They were trembling again. "When was the last time you took a proper break?" he asked. "Breaks are for people who are not being watched." Micah studied her for a moment, then stepped back toward the door. "Then maybe you need someone who watches for the right reasons." He left before she could respond. The door whispered shut behind him. Ariana sat motionless, listening to the distant hum of the vacuum cleaner fatting down the corridor. Her office felt heavier than before, as if the silence had mass. She looked down at her legs. They were still, pale in the blue light of the city. 6 months ago, she had believed that power came from motion. Tonight, she was no longer sure. The elevator bell echoed somewhere below, one soft chime that sounded almost like a heartbeat. She did not know why she whispered it, but the words left her lips before she could stop them. "Micah Cole." Rain pressed harder against the glass. Outside, the skyline blurred into streaks of silver. Inside, Ariana Vale, alone at the top of her empire, felt the smallest crack of something she had not felt in months. The following morning began without sunlight. A blanket of mist swallowed downtown Seattle, and Vale Dynamics looked like a silver ship adrift in the clouds. Inside, the tension was already awake. Ariana Vale arrived before her staff. Clara Jin walked beside her, balancing two phones and a tablet. "The investors want to reschedule the presentation," Clara said. "They heard a rumor that you are postponing physical therapy again." "Rumor," Ariana replied sharply. "People should focus on our quarterly earnings, not on my legs." She moved her wheelchair into the conference room. The walls shimmered with digital screens, graphs, numbers, performance charts. Yet every chart reminded her of something she could no longer control. When the meeting ended, Ariana stayed behind. She stared at the empty chairs and thought about the janitor who had spoken to her as if she were human. The thought unsettled her more than the board's scrutiny. By noon, the corridors buzzed with executives preparing for another investor call. Ariana pressed her fingers to her temples. The pain pulsed like an echo beneath her skull. She reached for her medication but hesitated. Clara noticed. "You should not take more of those. They make you dizzy." "They make me functional." "You already work more hours than anyone here. Let me call the driver." "No," Ariana's tone froze the air. "I said no." Clara hesitated, then left quietly, her footsteps fading like retreating trust. When evening fell, the tower emptied again. The rain returned, whispering against the glass. At 11, a familiar rhythm drifted through the hallways, the sound of a cleaning cart, wheels squeaking softly over marble. Micah Cole appeared in the doorway, cautious as always. "You are still here," he said. "I do not leave much anymore." "That is not living, Miss Vale." "I am not looking for advice tonight, Mr. Cole." He nodded once, understood. He began wiping the glass wall behind her. The scent of disinfectant filled the room, mixing with the faint aroma of burnt coffee. After a moment he said quietly, "When was the last time you slept 8 hours?" "I cannot remember." "That is not surprising. You are carrying a body and a company at the same time." She turned toward him, irritation flaring. "What would you know about carrying anything?" "A daughter," he said simply, 5 years old. She weighs 38 pounds and an entire future." The answer disarmed her. She had expected excuses, not honesty. "You are a single father." "Yes, ma'am. Her name is Amira." "And you still work nights." "Dreams cost more when you start at the bottom." Ariana was silent. The only sound was rain tapping the windows like fingertips. Micah finished cleaning and began to pack his cart. Then he noticed the tremor in her left hand as she reached for another file. "May I say something without losing my job?" "That depends on what you say." "You are hurting yourself." She froze. "You are out of line." "Maybe," he said, "but that does not make me wrong." Her gaze hardened, but the truth behind his tone unsettled her. No one at Vale Dynamics had ever dared to speak to her that way. Not the board, not the investors, not even Clara. "You think because you once worked in medicine, you can diagnose me." "I do not need a title to recognize pain." Something inside her cracked at the calm conviction in his voice. She could have dismissed him, ordered security, ended the conversation, but she did not. Instead, she asked quietly, "What did you do before all this?" "Army medic. I worked in trauma rehabilitation for soldiers. After my wife passed, I could not stay in the field. I went back to school." The word "past" landed between them like a stone, dropped into deep water. "I am sorry," she said, softer than she expected. "It is all right. Pain has its own purpose. It reminds us we are still alive." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain slowed outside, and the city lights shimmered like distant stars. Micah looked at her desk, the scattered reports, the medication bottles, the coffee gone cold. "You should be further along in your recovery by now. 6 months after an incomplete T12 fracture, most patients regain some function." Ariana's eyes narrowed. "You read my medical file." "No, ma'am. I read the signs, your breathing, your shoulders, the way your fingers grip the wheels. You have potential movement that has been ignored. Ignored by specialists who cost more than your salary. Maybe money is not the measure of expertise. Her lips parted, but no reply came. Micah picked up his cart handle. Forgive me, I will not speak out of turn again. He began to leave, but her voice stopped him at the door. Mr. Cole, what did you mean, potential movement? He turned back slowly. It means your body is trying to heal, Miss Vale. It only needs someone who still believes it can. Their eyes met across the room, hers cold and calculating, his steady and certain. The air felt charged, as if the entire tower held its breath. Micah nodded once and disappeared down the corridor. Ariana sat alone, the words echoing through the silence. Someone who still believes it can. For the first time in months, she did not reach for her medication. She let the pain exist, sharp and real, like proof of something still alive inside her. Outside, the storm cleared. A thin line of moonlight slid through the glass and settled across her desk, tracing a pale path between the pills and the reports, between the life she defended and the one she had forgotten to live. She whispered his name again, not in anger this time, but in wonder. Micah Cole. The next day unfolded in quiet disarray. Vale Dynamics moved through its routines like a well-oiled machine, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside the corner office, Ariana Vale sat motionless, staring at the city that once bowed to her every decision. Her reflection looked stronger than she felt. The suit was immaculate, the makeup precise, but the eyes betrayed the truth. She was running on painkillers and pride. Clara Jin entered with a digital tablet in her hands. Morning brief, Miss Vale. Also, she hesitated. There is chatter about last night. The janitor stayed longer than scheduled. Security logged it. Ariana's tone was cool, and they want to know if you authorized it. Tell them I did, Ariana said. Clara blinked. You did not. I am authorizing it now. The assistant nodded slowly, her curiosity sharpening. Do you want me to ask him to report directly to me next time? No, let him finish his work. He seems thorough. Clara left, but her expression lingered, part surprise, part disbelief. By evening, the tower was once again empty, except for the echo of rain and the steady hum of vacuum machines. The glass walls glowed with reflections of traffic far below. Micah Cole appeared at her doorway. Evening, Miss Vale. Ariana did not look up from her papers. I thought you were gone. I stay late when it is quiet, less interruption. She set her pen down. You make a habit of diagnosing executives while cleaning their floors. He smiled slightly. Only the ones who look like they stopped breathing months ago. The comment hit harder than it should have. You presume a lot, Mr. Cole. Maybe I just pay attention. She studied him for a long moment. You said something last night about potential movement. Explain. Micah stepped inside, his shoes leaving faint streaks on the polished floor. He pointed gently toward her chair. Do you mind? Ariana hesitated, then nodded. He crouched, his tone shifting into quiet professionalism. Your spine injury, T12 incomplete. That means the communication between your brain and lower body was damaged, but not severed. I know what incomplete means, she said sharply. Then you also know that incomplete injuries have possibilities. The body remembers how to heal, even when the mind gives up first. His voice was calm, clinical, but warm. She felt an odd pull, something between annoyance and fascination. What are you suggesting, Mr. Cole? That I start believing in miracles? Not miracles, he said. Mechanisms. You have unused neural pathways. With training, stimulation, and patience, they can reroute. You speak as if you have done this before. I have. Soldiers, accident victims, people written off by doctors who stopped believing too soon. Ariana looked down at her hands. And you think I am one of them? I think you are still fighting a war you refuse to name. The room fell quiet except for the steady tap of rain on glass. "What would you do," she asked, "if this were your patient?" "I would begin with basic mobility assessment. Measure sensation, response, posture, then build a recovery plan." "And what if your patient refuses?" "Then I would remind her that refusal is still a choice, which means she has power left." She leaned back, studying him. There was no arrogance in his tone, only conviction. For the first time in months, someone spoke to her not as a CEO or a symbol, but as a person with something still worth saving. The door opened slightly. Clara Jin peeked in. "Miss Vale, your driver. Oh, I am sorry. I did not realize." Micah stood immediately. "I was just leaving." But Clara's sharp eyes caught the scene. The janitor kneeling beside the wheelchair, the open file on the desk titled Rehabilitation Summary. She looked from one to the other. "You were discussing medical treatment." Ariana's voice was firm. "We were discussing possibilities." Clara hesitated, then said softly, "Forgive me, Ms. Vale, but he seems to know what he is talking about." Micah gave a respectful nod and stepped aside. "Thank you, Ms. Jin." After he left, Clara closed the door and turned to her boss. "Do you trust him?" "I do not know," Ariana said. "But for the first time, someone looked at me without seeing a tragedy." Clara's voice softened. "Then maybe that is where healing starts." Later that night, Ariana sat alone, scrolling through her own medical reports on the screen. Words like limited potential and reduced function blurred into noise. She replayed Micah's sentence in her head, "The body remembers how to heal." It sounded absurd, yet something deep inside her, buried under logic and pain, wanted to believe it. She closed the laptop, rolled to the window, and watched the rain. Below, a single maintenance light moved slowly across the marble lobby. She knew it was him. For a long time she just watched, the reflection of that small light flickering across her face like a heartbeat. When Clara came to say goodnight, Ariana spoke without turning. "Find out everything you can about Micah Cole." "Why?" "Because I need to know if his belief is science or something stronger." Outside, the light continued to move through the darkened lobby, steady and patient. Inside, for the first time in months, Ariana Vale began to hope that movement was still possible. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. Seattle's skyline blurred into gray ribbons, and the tower of Vale Dynamics looked less like glass and more like isolation. Ariana Vale sat in her office, eyes locked on the empty doorway where Micah Cole had stood the night before. His words had refused to leave her mind. "The body remembers how to heal." She told herself it was wishful thinking. Yet this morning, she had done something she had not done in months. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and touched her leg, as if checking for proof that she was still part of it. A knock broke the silence. Clara Jin stepped in with a tablet and a hesitant expression. "Ms. Vale, there is something you should see." She placed the screen on the desk. It displayed security footage from the previous night. The angle showed Micah kneeling beside Ariana's chair, pointing to her back, the light catching the curve of his hand. The security office flagged it. They thought it looked inappropriate. Ariana's jaw tightened. It was not. He was explaining a medical term. "I know that," Clara said quickly, "but others will not. You should be careful. Some people love to misinterpret kindness." Ariana turned off the tablet. "Thank you, that will be all." When Clara left, Ariana stayed still for a long moment. She could feel the pulse of fear rising inside her, not of scandal, but of what it revealed. The more people watched, the less freedom she had to feel human. That evening, the storm reached its height. The city thundered like a heartbeat outside her windows. She sat in the half-dark, a single lamp casting warm light across the desk. At exactly 9, the elevator chimed. She knew it would be him. Micah entered quietly, his uniform damp from the rain. He carried a folder under his arm. "You asked for this." He placed it on her desk. Inside were medical diagrams stretching routines, data on incomplete spinal injuries. "You gathered all this?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am, and a few notes from a friend who runs a recovery clinic. He said the window for progress is still open." "You believe that?" "I would not be here if I did not." He looked at her calm as always, and she saw something she had not expected: respect, not pity. "You are a strange man, Mr. Cole." "Maybe, but sometimes strange is what saves people." She opened the folder again, studying the sketches. "You said you could measure sensation. How?" "Simple test, if you are willing." Her breath caught. "Now." "Now is as good a time as any." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, show me." Micah knelt beside her, careful, professional. He removed a pen from his pocket. "I am going to tap gently along your leg. Tell me when you feel something." His voice was low, steady. The rain muffled the world outside. He touched the pen to her knee. Nothing. Then lower to her calf, still nothing. Finally, just above her ankle. A flicker, barely perceptible. "Wait," she whispered. "I think I—" He looked up. "You felt that?" Her throat tightened. It was faint, like static. "That is enough." Tears rose without warning. She tried to hide them, turning away. "It does not mean anything. It could be reflex." "It could be hope," he said softly. The words broke her. Months of anger and self-control collapsed in a single breath. She pressed her palms to her face. "Do you have any idea what it is like to be trapped in your own body?" Micah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Yes, every day since my wife died." The confession froze her tears. He stood, looking at the rain outside. "She was in a car accident. I was supposed to drive that night. She did not make it. My daughter did. I promised I would help people stand again, even if I never could." Silence filled the room, the kind that bends time. Ariana reached for her desk, gripping the edge. "You carry your pain like armor. And you hide yours like a crown." Their eyes met. No walls, no titles, just two broken people learning how to breathe again. A loud knock shattered the moment. The door swung open. Vivian Stone, head of corporate communications, stepped in unannounced. "Ms. Vale," she said sharply, "we need to discuss the footage circulating among staff. You were seen with this employee touching him. It is inappropriate." Ariana straightened her posture. "You are mistaken." "Mistaken or not, the optics are terrible. You must distance yourself immediately." Micah stepped back, silent. Ariana's voice was calm but edged with steel. "You will not dictate who I speak to in my own company, Ms. Stone." "Your company depends on reputation," Vivian snapped. "Do not forget that." Ariana's hands tightened on the wheelchair armrest. "Leave us." Vivian hesitated, then turned to go. "For your sake, I hope you know what you are doing." The door shut behind her. Ariana exhaled, long and trembling. Micah remained still, his gaze steady. "That is what I meant last night," he said quietly. "The world stops believing too easily." She looked at him, really looked, and said, "Then maybe you can teach me how not to." Micah nodded once. "Tomorrow we start tomorrow." The rain softened, the thunder faded. Ariana rolled toward the window, the lights of the city reflecting in her eyes. For the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to imagine movement, not in dreams but in possibility. Behind her, Micah gathered his notes. His voice was quiet but firm. "Tomorrow, Miss Vale, we see what your body remembers." The words lingered in the room long after he left. She touched her leg again, and this time she swore she felt something, small, electric, real. The next morning broke clear for the first time in a week. The rain had finally stopped, and sunlight spilled through the glass walls of Vale Dynamics like a quiet promise. Ariana Vale sat in her office, staring at the light as if it were something she needed to remember. She had not slept much. Her mind replayed the night before, the spark in her leg, Micah's steady voice, the way he said, "Tomorrow, We see what your body remembers. She almost canceled. Pride told her it was foolish, that hope only leads to more pain. But when the clock hit 9, she found herself waiting. At exactly 9:15, the door opened. Micah Cole entered, carrying a black duffel bag instead of his usual cleaning cart. He wore a plain gray sweatshirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. "Good morning, Miss Vale," he said. "You are early." "Healing does not start on time," he replied, setting the bag down. She raised an eyebrow. "You are serious about this?" "Only way I know how to be." He unzipped the bag, elastic bands, resistant straps, small weights, a portable stim device. All of it clean, simple, purposeful. "We will start easy," he said. "No heroics, just breathing and alignment. I have not stood in 6 months." "Then we start by remembering what standing feels like." He positioned her wheelchair near the edge of her desk and locked the wheels. Hands on the armrest, back straight, look forward, not down. She obeyed, though every muscle screamed doubt. He crouched beside her, one hand hovering near her shoulder, the other steadying the brace at her knee. "Ready?" "No," she whispered. "Good, fear means you are awake." On his count, she pressed her palms down. Her arms shook. The chair creaked. For one breathless second, her body lifted just an inch and collapsed back down. She gasped, half laughing, half crying. That was pathetic. That was progress. It was 1 inch. That is 1 inch further than yesterday. He reset her position, patient and calm. Again. They repeated the motion. Once, twice, 5 times. Sweat gathered along her hairline. Her breathing deepened, rhythmic. Micah's tone never changed, firm, steady, anchoring her when her will began to fray. By the 10th attempt, her arms trembled violently. "I cannot," she said. "Then rest," he answered, "but do not quit." She leaned back, exhausted. He handed her a towel. "Hydrate," he said simply, and she obeyed. The silence between them was comfortable now, not heavy. She studied his face, calm, precise, older than his years. "You talk like someone who has done this before," she said. "Many times, but none of them were billionaires who thought hope was a weakness." She smiled faintly. "You are not afraid to offend me." "I respect you too much to lie." The words landed with more weight than she expected. For the first time, she realized how long it had been since anyone spoke to her without an agenda. Micah adjusted a strap on her brace. "Try to lift again. This time, focus on the signal. Your body is listening." She closed her eyes, inhaled, and pressed down. The chair creaked, her arms strained, and then there it was again. A flicker, a pulse of movement from deep inside her legs. Her eyes snapped open. "I felt it again." "Where?" "My thigh, just for a second." Micah smiled. "That is the body remembering." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they came with laughter. "Do not tell anyone," she said, "but I might actually believe you." He chuckled. "That is a start." The session continued for nearly an hour. When they finished, Ariana leaned back, sweat cooling on her skin, heart racing. How long would recovery take, if it were possible? "It depends," he said, "on effort, on will, and on what you are willing to change." "Change what?" "How you see yourself, how you see others." She studied him, then asked, "Do you mean how I see you?" He met her eyes without hesitation. "You already see me differently." Her silence confirmed it. The door opened suddenly. Clara Jin entered, startled to see the scene. Ariana flushed, gripping the wheelchair armrests. Micah crouched beside her, holding the brace. "Oh," Clara said, stepping back. "I did not mean to interrupt." "It is fine," Ariana said quickly. "We are working." Clara's eyes darted to the equipment. "Working." "Therapy," Ariana said firmly. "His methods are unconventional, but they work." Micah stood, wiping his hands. "Good progress today," he said. "I will send a follow-up schedule." When he left, Clara lingered. Ms. Vale, the board will not like this. Ariana wheeled closer to her desk. The board does not own my body or my choices. Clara hesitated. They might not see it that way. Ariana's tone sharpened. Then they can watch me prove them wrong. After Clara left, the office fell silent again. The smell of disinfectant lingered faintly, mixed with something new, determination. Ariana stared out at the skyline, her reflection strong against the glass. For the first time since the accident, her mind felt louder than her pain. Below, Micah walked out of the building into the sunlight, the duffel bag over his shoulder. He paused, looked up toward her office, and smiled faintly, as if sensing she was watching. She whispered almost to herself, 1 inch today, tomorrow too. Her voice was steady now, calm but certain. The kind of voice that had built an empire and was now learning to rebuild a life. The city stretched wide before her, washed clean by the storm. By the end of the week, whispers had begun to travel through the tower. Staff spoke in cautious tones about the janitor who was spending time with the CEO. Some called it scandal, others called it rumor, but none of them knew the truth. Ariana Vale ignored the noise. Every morning she trained with Micah Cole in her private office. The sessions were silent, focused, disciplined. Inch by inch, strength returned to her hands, to her shoulders, and then, barely, to her legs. Clara Jin was the only one who saw the change. She walked in one afternoon and froze. Ariana was holding herself upright between the desk and the chair, her arms trembling but locked, her head high. "Miss Vale," Clara whispered, "you are standing." Ariana's voice was low but steady. For 12 seconds, but yes. Micah stood behind her, calm as always. "We are measuring progress, not miracles." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Does the board know?" "Not yet," Ariana said. "They will." The moment was private, sacred, but news never stayed hidden in glass towers. Within a day, a photograph leaked from the security system, a blurred image of Ariana and Micah in the same frame, her body half lifted, his hands supporting her braces. By morning, the gossip had reached the boardroom. Vivian Stone called an emergency meeting. When Ariana arrived, the air was thick with judgment. Screens displayed headlines from internal blogs, CEO seen with janitor in late-night sessions. Vivian stood at the head of the table. "Ariana, this has gone too far. The company's reputation is at risk. Investors are nervous." Ariana wheeled forward, calm but cold. "Investors are always nervous. That is why I exist." Vivian's tone sharpened. "You are mixing personal vulnerability with corporate business. This man is beneath your professional standards." The word beneath sliced through the air. Clara flinched. Micah, standing quietly near the door, looked at the floor but said nothing. Ariana's voice dropped. "What did you just say?" Vivian straightened. "You heard me. He is maintenance staff, not a physician, not qualified. You are risking everything for someone who does not belong here." The room went silent. Then Ariana unlocked her wheelchair brakes. Slowly, she placed her hands on the table and began to push. The effort was visible, painful, but unstoppable. Her legs trembled, her body rose, the room gasped. "You see a janitor," she said, voice steady. "But I see the man who helped me do what your doctors could not." Every sound vanished, the hum of lights, the tapping of pens, the shallow breath of disbelief. Ariana stood upright, holding the edge of the table. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. Micah stood motionless, his face unreadable. Ariana continued, her voice strong now. "He believed when all of you were too afraid to. He did not ask for payment or status or praise. He just reminded me that dignity does not depend on a title." Vivian tried to speak, but her voice cracked. This is not the place." "It is exactly the place," Ariana interrupted. "You built this company on the illusion of control. I intend to rebuild it on the truth of compassion." She let go of the table. For a moment, balance wavered, but Micah stepped forward, steadying her without touching her. The silence turned electric. Every person in that room saw what power truly looked like, not the kind that sits behind desks, but the kind that rises from the floor. Ariana looked directly at Vivian. "You said he does not belong here. You are wrong. He belongs here more than anyone who forgets what humanity looks like." The board members sat frozen, some ashamed, others inspired. Ariana turned to Micah. "You may go, Mr. Cole." He nodded, voice quiet, "Yes, ma'am." As he left, the echo of her words lingered in the room. He belongs here. The doors closed behind him. For the first time in years, Ariana Vale felt completely upright, not because her body allowed it, but because her soul demanded it. The video of Ariana Vale standing in the boardroom spread faster than any quarterly report her company had ever released. By noon, every major outlet in Seattle had the headline, "Wheelchair, Bound CEO stands again during confrontation with board." Some called it a miracle, others called it a publicity stunt, but no one could deny what they saw. Inside Vale Dynamics, the reaction was divided. The younger staff cheered quietly in hallways. The older executives whispered about damage control. Vivian Stone paced her office, furious that her authority had evaporated overnight. Ariana, meanwhile, was calm. The morning after the meeting, she arrived at the tower walking slowly with braces and a cane. Each step was deliberate, fragile, but real. Security guards stopped talking when they saw her. The silence followed her like a tide of respect. Clara Jin met her at the elevator. "They are waiting in the conference room again," she said. "Let them wait," Ariana replied. She rolled her shoulders back, straightened her jacket, and stepped into the elevator alone. When the doors opened, the board members stood up instinctively. Vivian tried to speak first. "Ariana, we need to control the narrative." "The narrative controls itself when the truth is visible," Ariana said evenly. Vivian's expression hardened. "You went against protocol. You embarrassed this company." Ariana placed her cane on the table. "I reminded this company what it means to stand for something." The board fell silent. Then Clara entered with a small tablet. "Before you continue," she said, "you should see this." She tapped the screen. A live stream appeared, hundreds of employees in the main lobby cheering, clapping, holding signs that read, "We believe in the Vale Rise." Vivian's voice broke. "What is this?" "It is what happens," Ariana said, "when people see dignity instead of division." She turned to the board. "You talk about productivity, image, return on investment, but you forgot that people build this company, not stock prices. Today, we correct that." Clara handed Ariana a document. She looked at it once, then slid it across the table toward Vivian. "Effective immediately, I am restructuring corporate leadership. Every department will implement equity and rehabilitation programs for injured or disabled employees. We will call it the Heart Rise Initiative." Vivian's face paled. "You cannot do that without a vote." "I already did," Ariana replied. "This is my company." The weight of her words hung in the air. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then one of the older board members, a man who rarely said anything at all, rose from his chair. "I support this," he said quietly. One by one, others nodded. Vivian looked around, realizing the tide had turned. Her authority collapsed in silence. She gathered her papers and stormed out, the echo of her heels the only applause she would get. Ariana exhaled, steadying herself on her cane. "Let us get to work." Hours later, she found Micah Cole in the rehabilitation wing that had once been an unused floor of the building. The space was filled with light and movement now, equipment, mats, and volunteers. Micah was adjusting a brace for a young employee recovering from surgery. When he saw her, his smile was quiet, proud. "You made this happen fast." "The world does not wait for approval anymore," she said. He nodded. "And you?" She lifted her cane slightly, still standing. He smiled. Then so am I. Ariana looked around the bright new space. This is only the beginning, Micah. I want every worker in this company, no matter who they are, to have the same chance you gave me. He looked at her for a moment. You just turned compassion into policy. She met his gaze. No, Micah, I turned belief into action. The sound of applause drifted from the hallway. Employees gathered to thank her, to thank him. For the first time, Vale Dynamics felt alive. 6 months later, Vale Dynamics no longer looked like a corporation. It felt like a community. The once sterile hallways now carried laughter, music, and the rhythmic sound of therapy sessions taking place in the new rehabilitation center. The sign above the entrance read the Vale Cole Institute for Human Recovery. On a quiet morning, sunlight poured across the polished floors as Ariana Vale walked slowly through the main hall. The braces were gone. Her steps were steady, graceful, not perfect, but undeniably her own. Every few feet, employees stopped working just to watch her pass. She smiled at them. Not the polished smile of a CEO performing confidence, but the quiet one of a woman who finally understood it. Micah Cole was in the training area, helping a young intern take her first steps after a spinal injury. He glanced up as Ariana approached. "Still walking?" he asked, the familiar calm in his voice. "Still proving I can," she said. He chuckled softly. "You always could, you just needed to remember." They walked side by side toward the large window overlooking Seattle's skyline. The rain had returned, gentle now, washing the glass in silver streaks. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The quiet nights when you were just cleaning floors?" "Sometimes," Micah said. "Back then I had no power, but I also had no fear. Now I have both. That is how I know I am alive." She turned to him. "You changed my life." "You changed what people think power looks like," he replied. For a long moment, they stood together in silence, watching the city that once judged them now reflect their strength. Ariana spoke softly, almost to herself. "For years, I built machines that replaced human effort. Now I understand. What truly moves the world is not technology. It is people who refuse to give up on each other." Micah nodded. "You did not raise your voice to prove your worth. You raised the standard." Ariana smiled. Maybe that is what leadership really is. Outside, thunder rolled gently across the horizon. Inside, a young employee took her first steps with the help of the institute staff, and applause filled the room. Ariana and Micah turned toward the sound. She whispered, "There it is again." "What?" he asked. "The sound of belief." The camera of the heart could have stopped there, on two people standing tall, surrounded by lives they helped rebuild. Voiceover. He helped her walk, not just with her legs but with her heart, and she proved that dignity is not inherited, it is chosen. In a world that measures worth by how high we stand, they reminded us that sometimes the truest strength begins on the floor.